gonna call this 10/10/2023 regular town council meeting to order for the town of Selma. We've got some exciting things happening this evening, so we will go ahead and get into it. First and foremost, if you will all stand and Councilman, if you don't mind, invocation for this evening.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we just thank you for the opportunity to come tonight, Lord. We ask you to be in the midst of what we do in town business, Lord. Bless each and every one that's came here, Lord. And we give you all the praise and honor for each and everything that's done. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. And Mayor Pro Tem, if you lead us in the pledge of the flag.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. Okay. Council, we need to take a look over the agenda and see if there are any additions or subtractions to make to that agenda. Any adjustments that need to be made? I do know that we have another application for the Selma Tourism Commission. And if you don't mind, I'd like to add that under business items and make that G. We will make that G last piece of business items. Did we have any other adjustments, additions, subtractions that need to be made to this agenda? Staff, everybody's good? Well, with that, do I have a motion to approve this agenda with the noted change?
So moved.
Got a second? Second, Councilwoman Whitley. All those in favor?
Aye.
We have ourselves an agenda. And that brings us into our consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have two sets of minutes from September 7, 2023, regular council agenda review minutes, and from September 12th, 2023, our regular council meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda in front of you?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda is approved, and now that takes us into some very cool recognitions and presentations. First up, we have a proclamation declaring October 8th through the 14th as Fire Prevention Week. I believe Assistant Chief Brandon Barbie is going to talk about that for us real quick. Just a brief chit chat, and then we're going to read a proclamation.
Yes, thank you, Ken. So, throughout the United States of America, this week, starting October 8th through October 15th, is National Fire Prevention Week. What we're asking is a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week for the town of Selma.
Yes, sir. Sounds good to me, and I believe I've got a proclamation here before me. Let me get a sip of water before we jump into that thing. So we have a proclamation for Town of Selma Fire Prevention Week 2023, and it reads, whereas the Town of Selma is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting out state, and whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk for fire. And whereas house fires caused 3,800 civilian deaths in the United States in 2021, according to the National Fire Prevention Association, and fire departments in the United States responded to 335,500 home fires. And whereas smoke alarms sense smoke well before you can, alerting you to danger in the event of fire, in which you may have as little as 2 minutes to escape safely. And whereas working smoke alarms cut the risk of dying in reported home fires in half. And whereas Town of Selma residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the smoke alarm and knows how to respond. And whereas Town of Selma residents who have planned and practiced a home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas Town of Selma residents will make sure their smoke and carbon monoxide alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory or physical disabilities. And whereas Town of Selma first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Town of Selma residents that are responsive to public education measures are better able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2023 Fire Prevention Week theme, Cooking Safety Starts With You, Pay Attention to Fire Prevention, effectively served to remind the Town of Selma it is important to have a cooking safety plan, including a fire extinguisher and never leaving cooking unattended. Whereas I, Byron McAllister, Mayor of the Town of Selma, do hereby proclaim October 8th through the 14th, 2023 as Fire Prevention Week throughout this state, and I urge all the people of the Town of Selma to plan and practice a home fire escape plan for Fire Prevention Week 2023, and to support the many public safety activities and efforts of town's fire and emergency services. If the so chooses by the council, duly proclaimed this 10th day of October 2023. This is the proclamation before you, council. Do I have a motion to approve this proclamation for the Town of Selma?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have ourselves a Fire Prevention Week proclamation. Thank you so much, Assistant Chief Hart. Appreciate that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next up, we've got some very exciting news coming out of our fire department. I believe we have some promotions to discuss. Fire Chief Philip McDaniel.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for that proclamation. We appreciate it. The Selma Fire Department produces the best firefighters, period. Their day-to-day actions promote the reputation of Selma Fire, and just being a long-time firefighter in Selma makes you very valuable. Unfortunately, people know that, and they look out and they try to get our people. So folks chase them. So recently, Captain Jesse Massey, which is here tonight, just left us. He's a 7-year veteran of Selma, and he left to go to the Johnson County Fire Marshal's office, and we're proud of him and wish him a long, happy career. Ain't gonna be as good as this one, but with that has opened up a captain position, which I feel like I truly believe that the captain position is the backbone of the fire department. That's the first leader on scene. So with that, I'd ask Jameson Clifton to report to the front. Some of y'all have heard this before. This is good. I don't ever rewrite it. So Jameson, thank you for stepping up in this leadership role. Make no mistake that each position within our department requires leadership. You're placed in a position of authority with these promotions, but leadership begins much earlier in your career, and in most cases by who you are, what you believe, and how you show it. No matter if the task is routine and minimal or in an emergency life-saving situation, people will look to you to execute a plan in a moment's notice that some way will benefit this town and our citizens. You've been chosen for this role not only due to your work performance, but also your core values and your belief in the mission of this department. Harry Truman said shortly after being thrust into presidency, there's no end to what great things can be accomplished when no one cares who gets the credit. While carrying out your duties, remember the following. Always do what's right for the citizens, and everything else will fall into place. Success means a win for the department. Failure is on you, the leader, alone. Keep emphasis on the big picture. Speak up when needed, but listen always. Great leadership is contagious, and great attitudes are contagious. Spread them. fiance or girlfriend? Miss Girlfriend, probably soon to be. Every leader has a supportive family. Thank you for letting Selma have Mr. Clifton for a third of his life. Let these guys talk it out when you get home. They're gonna need it. They see a lot of bad things. So support, listen to them, and I promise he'll look after you. Now I ask that, you get your badge ready. Let's pin Mr. Captain Jameson Clifton.
Congratulations, James.
Exciting times here in the town of Selma. Got some more exciting things happening. We've got another promotion ceremony to take care of this evening. Just recently, an amazing human being retired from the town of Selma after patrolling our streets for many years. Chief Billy Thomas, I think is finally getting to relax for half a second, do a little yard work. And what that means is certainly we gonna need ourselves a police chief, and we know we have the man for a job. Jamie Hughes, if you would come on. Now, formerly Major Hughes, I believe, is currently our longest tenured employee. Yes, sir. 2001? Yes, sir. 2001, he's been with our police force. I think you've seen quite a bit in the town of Selma. I think you saw quite a bit as you were working under Chief Thomas. I know you've trained our entire force. I know you have been absolutely amazing to this community. So with that, this man brought you through trying periods in our community. And I believe he left you with an absolutely amazing police force. And we now expect you, and know you will, turn this into a police force that excels. We are already the best police force in Johnson County. We expect to get better. You ready? Yes, sir. You look ready. I'm ready. If you will, repeat after me, and when I say state your name, please state your name. Yes, sir. I,
Jamie Hughes,
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will
that I will
support the Constitution
support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
so help me God.
and of God.
I
I, Jamie Hughes,
do further swear
do further swear
that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities which are
and authorities which are
or may be established
may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
and that I will endeavor
and that I will endeavor
to support,
to support,
maintain, and defend the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution
with the Constitution
of the United States, to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and ability,
and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I
I, Jamie Hughes,
do further swear
do further swear
that without prejudice,
that without prejudice,
I will honestly perform
I will honestly perform
the duties of Police Chief of Selma,
the duties of Police Chief of Selma,
North Carolina, according to the best of my skills
according to the best of my skills
and ability,
and abilities,
according to law. So help me God.
so help me God.
Consider yourself sworn. Thank you so much. Awesome. You want to say a few words?
I do. I thought about this earlier in the week.
You want to say a few words?
That's fine, I'm good. I can stand right here and talk to everybody. I think I got myself together. I got my mom and dad and my family here, so it's a little bit emotional time for me. I'm trying to choke through it, so I figured the best thing for me to do is write me some notes. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and the council for giving me this opportunity, trusting in my leadership to promote me to chief of police. I really appreciate that. But I don't want to make this about me. This position is bigger than me. I want this to be about our officers, our department, and the citizens of this town. To my officers, I appreciate each one of you. The sacrifices you make are not taken lightly. You go above and beyond each day. You are constantly faced with life and death situations, make split-second decisions, and still choose to put the uniform back on to help somebody else. You make Selma a better place to live. Thank you for your sacrifices. To the citizens, I assure you that we will run a professional organization that is dedicated to giving you the quality of life and safety that each of you desire. I would like to ask each citizen for this. Please remember the men and women behind the badge. I'd like to remind each of you that they're human beings at the end of the day. They live, laugh, love, and sometimes make mistakes just as you do. While we try to be perfect at all times, it is not humanly possible, but we will always attempt to right our wrongs. If you can find it in your heart to take a few minutes while you're lying in bed at night, please whisper a little prayer for our officers. We all need each other's support. I'd like to thank everybody and look forward to serving as your police chief.
Yeah. Chief! Okay. That brings us to open forum citizens request. We don't have anybody signed up. So with that, we'll see if anybody wants to raise a hand. We'll leave the floor open. I know you need to come up. Come on up if you would. State your name and residential address for the record, and then tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Council. My name is Derek Arnold. My residential address is 141 Clark Court, Youngsville, North Carolina. I come before you today. First, I would like to thank the town of Selma for welcoming Johnson Community College here to Selma. in particular our athletic department. This past season, 22-23 athletic season, we participated and played at the Richard B. Harrison Gymnasium, and it was a great experience. And we love the collaboration and the cooperative arrangements that we have with the town of Selma. And I want to thank you on behalf of Johnson Community College and our athletic department for welcoming us to the town of Selma. Thank you. Just wanted to we are in the process of looking to establish a long-term deal with the town of Selma, and particularly to continue playing our home basketball games at the Richard B. Harrison Gymnasium. And we wanted to just bring forth just a portion of that contract as it pertains to the opt-out portion of the contract. My question is, as it pertains to the JCC Town of Selma contract agreement, will JCC be responsible for the totality of the value of the contract in an opt-out situation, or just the value at the opt-out time for that particular year of remaining?
That's an excellent question, and we will make sure we address that directly, and we'll have council address that directly. We'll be looking at the contract further in our business items. Sound good?
Yep. No,
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the question. And we'll leave open forum citizens requests open for a little bit longer if anybody would like to speak as part of open forum citizens requests. Now, there will be time to speak if you are here related to a public hearing. There will be time to speak on that item particularly, but if you want to speak on an item other than that, now's the time if you'd like to. Going once, going twice, moving right along. That does bring us into public hearings and appeals. First up, we have an incentive ordinance related to a project on Rayford Street for Mr. Nicholas Ferez. With that being said, Chip, you want to walk us through this?
Be glad to, Mayor. Briefly, there was a prior agreement and also an ordinance passed by council. And I think for obvious reasons, the project's been delayed. And because of that, I think the owner has asked for additional time. And as you can see, if you've read through it, the ordinance and the incentive agreement pretty much mirror each other. And it involves the use of the property for a restaurant. And it has this 124 South Rayford Street. But it's got the incentive amount for, I believe, $40,000 for renovations. And again, it specifies for use as a restaurant located in the facility. So what you would be doing there is you would be superseding and replacing the prior agreement and the prior ordinance with this one. So if council's got any questions, we'll be glad to address any questions you may have.
And otherwise, we'll just need a public hearing opened up.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, with that, council, do we have any questions before we open up the public hearing? Do I have a motion to open up a public hearing for this incentive ordinance and incentive package for Mr. Nick Ferez?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is now open. Would anybody like to speak as part of this public hearing related to this incentive ordinance or this incentive agreement related to Mr. Nicholas Ferez's project? All right. With that, council, do we have any statements that need to be made as part of the public hearing? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. With that, I believe we have two actions to look at here. Council, do I have a motion to adopt the incentive ordinance between the town of Selma and Nicholas J. Ferez?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. And then, do I have a motion to approve the incentive agreement between the town of Selma and Nicholas J. Ferez?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We have an incentive agreement. Thank you, Mr. Ferez, for your continued investment in the town of Selma. Next up, we've got an incentive ordinance and incentive agreement with B2B These are the folks that are working on the Old Town Hall, and, Chip, if you would, take us through that, if you don't mind.
Very glad to. And again, it's very similar to the first, ordinance and incentive agreement council just passed. Again, it's for, the 103 East Anderson Street and 100 North Rayford Street, which is, across the street. Upper level is for apartments, and the lower level has been for a brewery type establishment. And again, it's, affirming the, incentive agreement, which I think is $20,000.
40.
It's 20.
I think it's
No,
20.
in there it's 20, but it should be 40, I think you said
Should
it's
be
new
20.
one.
Yeah, I think it does read 20.
So let's make sure that's clear first. That incentive agreement that's listed in the old, agenda is 20. So let's make it clear to the public, this one is also 40. These are all the same tier 2 agreements related to restaurants. So if there's any question there, we need to discuss. Yeah. Mr. Hewitt, go ahead.
Yes, sir, and Mayor, it would be, to qualify, they must be, the project must be completed no later than July 1 of 2024. And again, it's the same type of agreement ordinance that we've got. You'd open a public hearing, and then from there, legislative decision to, vote for, or against the, ordinance and the agreement.
And this, again, tier 2 incentive agreements, if a developer is spending $40,000 or more for a project related to a restaurant, like Mom and Them's, we gave them such an incentive agreement, the one we just discussed for Mr. Perez. This one as well, the maximum is $40,000 that we'll do, so for spending more than $40,000, they get that maximum.
And I believe that, before we left, Megan did make the change and set that to, the 40,000.
So we do need to make sure that is absolutely clear. And I do have that before me in these updated agenda documents. Council, do we have any questions?
Yeah, can you, actually tell me what caused it to slip?
Do we have any idea why it was the 20 before?
There was a previous, agreement, and so I carried that forward with the misunderstanding that it was 40.
I got you. So the original agreement that we had with B2B, from their original, start of the project, when they had the parking agreement as well, that was 20 for one piece, and then was it 20 for another, or 10 for another piece? And so, I guess when they were carrying it over, they put the 20 back in instead of the 40 with the current tier 2 agreements.
So only other question I have is, how many times are we gonna allow to keep shifting this around?
Well, this one, we're pulling back several of the parking spaces that we agreed to let them have out here. I believe originally it was 14,
Right.
and a lot of our business owners were very uncomfortable with that. So we are eradicating both those previous agreements and just going with the standard tier 2 agreement. Yeah. So they'll get the same opportunity that every other business owner and every other resident gets with parking spaces. They will not get a full suite of 14 parking spaces to themselves. Any other questions there?
Thank you, good Mayor. Yes, sir.
All right, well, with that, do I have a motion to open up the public hearing related to the incentive ordinance and incentive agreement with B2B?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Public hearing is open. Would anybody like to speak, as part of this public hearing? All right, with that, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. We do have an incentive ordinance and an incentive agreement to look at. Council, do I have a motion to adopt the incentive ordinance between the Town of Selma and B2B Selma LLC?
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
Absolutely.
And incentive, can we change the numbers on that as well?
It's been changed in our updated agenda packet, the last one that they sent.
I did, this is the last one.
That's the last one?
Yeah, it still says 20.
Let's see. Check and see which one this one I got. So I got mine. course, with the discussion, we will make sure it's changed on all
Okay,
documents.
this is what I wanna make sure.
Yeah, but it's, hiding in here.
Came in Friday, right?
No, yeah, they got it today.
Oh, today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what came out
A
late.
little late, yeah.
That's right. But I think that adjustment is made because we caught that today and they made that change.
Okay.
All right, let's see here. Any further discussion? All right, we got a motion on the second table. All those in favor?
Aye.
We've got an incentive ordinance. And with that, do I have a motion to approve the incentive grant agreement between the town of Selma and B2B?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion there? Let me make sure we do have the right numbers in the agreement that I have in hand. We do. All those in favor?
Aye.
We've got ourselves an agreement. Thanks to B2B for the investment. From what I understand, they do already have, is it Hatchet Brewery? Hatchet Brewery is supposed to be, working on building their space in the old town hall here shortly, so we're excited about that. All right. We've got more public hearings to look at. Ooh, a rezoning for 1355 North Webb Street. Chip, if you'd like to introduce us to that real quick?
Very glad to. Council look in the agenda, pages 23 to 27. Mr. Ray Moore is asking that, there's a total of 12.52 acres, which is currently R8 in general business. They're asking it to be, rezoned to TR, I think transitional residential. It's got the, area, as to where it's located, it's across the Selma Church, it's by, the middle school, and it gives all that information. I believe it went to planning board, and it was favorable from the planning board, Mayor. And from there, it's gonna be a legislative hearing to consider the rezone. If any questions as to the location of the property, I'll be glad to answer what I can.
I think we do have actual, paperwork on the location of the property. Council, do we have any questions related to that location?
I'm done.
Well, with that, do I have a motion to open the public hearing related to the rezoning of the site address 1355 North Webb Street?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, public hearing is open. Do we have anybody that would like to speak as part of the public hearing related to this rezoning action?
And Mayor, just to make sure, there's two of them. So this is the larger one. The other one is 1.80, and that's the one that's gonna be general business, in case there's any confusion. That's
Right.
right after.
And that's on Pollock Street.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's a
That's
different.
correct, yeah. My name is Patty Hilburn, I'm with McKim Creed Engineers. I'm representing Mr. Clifton Ray Moore, who is here as well tonight. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I just wanted to offer, if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll be happy to answer.
First question for you, actually, while you're here, absolutely.
Okay.
Just the desire, what is the need to change it to transitional residential?
It is, Mr. Ray Moore, he would like to, at some time, develop those parcels for, multifamily. And transitional residential fits really well, I think, with, you know, the future land use, but also what's the use is today, where you've got general business, you've got the school on the west side of, is it Pollock? Pollock Road, and then you have the general business along the east side of Pollock. It just makes for a good transition for, the, multifamily, and then across Webb Street to single family, the church, I believe, is on that side as well. So it's just a good transition, right? I mean, it just fits well with with what the town has, their vision, in my opinion. We were also, McKemmy Creed were involved in the rezoning of the parcel just to the north of this for transitional, residential as well. So, you know, there's a connection there as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Council, did you have any other questions?
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I just wanted to let you know that it's Laura Oxley, and I'm on the line if needed. I don't want to interject, but I'm here if needed.
Excellent. Well, did you have anything to add to that conversation concerning this particular rezoning?
Well, not really. I'm happy that a representative was able to kind of connect some dots. From a staff standpoint, we don't have any objection to this rezoning. With 160D, we will be asking council to adopt a consistency statement with the underlying land use plan. Staff actually does not believe it's entirely consistent with the land use plan. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something to acknowledge. I don't think it is a huge jump, but something for the minutes is something the planning board noted, perhaps something for your minutes as well. But then in the reasonableness statement, as council does their deliberations and makes this determination, if they are so inclined for the rezoning, I would encourage council to speak to a few things about the reasonableness, whether it's perhaps public interest, how it helps the community, keeping those things in mind, but staff otherwise doesn't have any objection to this rezoning.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak as part of the public hearing related to 1355?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Name and address.
Name and address, yes.
Ruth Clark, and my address is 1310 North Webb Street in Selma. We're right across the road from where y'all were talking about. And we were under the impression when she had sold that land, we were trying to buy that land for years from her, and she wouldn't sell it to us. So that's beside the point. The point is, our homes are valued at a decent price right now. So our main concern is to have something put in there that's not going to depreciate the value of our homes. That's our biggest concern. And like y'all know, there is a church right there. And so we don't want something in there that's gonna clog up our road all the time, keeping us just traffic constantly. We have enough of it, believe me. So I just wanted to let y'all know that we need something in there that's not going to depreciate the value of our homes.
Thank you very much.
No, it's not.
I do have a question as well. The property is currently zoned R8.
Yes.
Staff?
There is a portion GB.
There's a small portion that's GB.
Correct.
As far as the difference between R8 and transitional residential, what type of difference does it make related to multifamily? Ms. Oxley?
I hate to be the person that says, can you hear me? But just want to make sure, can you hear me?
We got you. No, we got you.
Okay, absolutely. Actually, there's not a substantial jump in density for these lots. When I was doing my review, the only thing that I noted was that the impervious surface shifts about 10%. And it's important not to, I believe this is on topic, but not to take a step back. Whenever a town does a rezoning, it is not permission for a specific use. So it's very different from a special use permit. If and when the owner developer were to put in something like townhomes, for example, all of that would still have to go through permitting. Depending on the size and given the size of this proposal, I believe DEQ permits would be triggered for stormwater. We'd have to look and see if traffic survey would be triggered. I don't think it would, but I always like to keep that perspective. But this transition, R8 is already high density residential. So to shift from an R8 to a TR, is not very substantial, in my opinion.
With the TR, does that open up, I guess, a few more options as far as development beyond multifamily? Ms. Oxley?
Compared to an R8, yes. It's my understanding that TR is originally proposed as transitional residential, to allow some commercial and some residential controlled. Obviously, you have some zoning districts that are strict residential and some that are strict business commercial. TR is a little bit more of a merging of the two, whereas if it stayed R8, it would not be, commercial would not be allowed.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak as part of the public hearing related to this? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, my name's Christy Turner, my address is 418 Bennett Drive. And I just wanted you to clarify, what I think I heard you say was that it was the land across from Selma Baptist Church. Is it the land that's adjacent to Howard's Field, or is it, how is that connected to, or if you could specify where it will be then,
I'll show you a map.
that would be great. So that's not across from the church? Yes.
It's a little closer.
It's actually, it's across from my mom's house, that's why I was asking.
Yes, my mom's
It's
house
land
too.
we've already looked at, yes.
There was a trailer there.
Where
That's
the
what-
softball field is.
Okay, so is it on the southern side of Howard's Field, is that what we're talking about?
So if you're driving down from the actual Baptist church coming this way,
Where
it's
is
gonna be on your right hand side.
Right,
Yes.
Right
so
over
I think we need to clarify that for the minutes, first of all, it's not across from Selma Baptist Church.
It's literally diagonal. It's like 5 feet from the Baptist church.
What would you say that should be?
Howard's Field is in the middle.
Right.
Application, yeah, that's what I got.
I think it's.
Yeah, well, you're looking, so you're looking at the Howard's Field. It's literally the lot next to it.
Trailer
Into
wheels.
the Baptist church.
I knew it.
Is it,
I wanna clarify that too.
So are we,
Yeah.
again, to clarify, Mr. Hewitt, is this, there was some land that they took down the trees?
In the audience, we're gonna need to quiet down as part of this public hearing. Everybody needs to quiet down in the audience. If you need to speak, please come up to the mic.
So I just wanna clarify, based on, my mom's house is 1004 North Webb, and that land, the trees were taken down. There was some there were some questions about that, nothing ever happened. Are we talking about that land, or are we talking about the land on the other side of Howard's Field?
We're talking about 3 actual parcels, and it does include that land as well.
Okay, 3 actual parcels, so the 3 parcels would be the parcel directly across from 1004 or 1002.
Let me actually give some clarification. So it is not across from the church. It is south of the church.
Yes,
The
And,
application does say across from the church.
but it is south of the church, so clarification
That
as
is
part of the
incorrect.
record. It is south of the church. And it is actually, if you go down Webb Street, it pretty much goes up to the end of where the houses are. If you were going north on Webb, the houses to the right,
yes,
where the houses end is where that parcel ends on the left as well.
okay, and then you get to the church.
That's right.
So that'll all be clumped together. Will Howard's Field be removed, or is that included in it? or how does-
Christie, let's go back, cause I wanna make this very, very clear to everyone. You have Head
Yes.
Start and the church.
Yes,
You have that field where all the trees were taken down.
yes,
And in the back, we have transfer.
Yes.
We have that coming closer and closer to Webb. Then we have the softball field.
yes,
And then we have that lot, and I'm thinking that's where it starts.
that's where this starts.
At the edge, yep, at that very edge.
Okay, because the other's already been determined. We're only talking about that last part you just talked about.
Yeah, well, we're actually talking about the entire strip. So
Okay.
starting at Head Start all the way up is that entire strip we're talking about.
Okay, now I just misunderstood. I just
Yeah,
told you
so-
one thing.
Well,
We're talking
no.
about,
And-
we're talking about 3 parcels. So it's all 3 coming up,
So there's the driveway to Head Start.
Yep.
So we're talking
all the way up.
the
From the
All right,
driveway to
I'll-
Head Start, all the way
right.
down.
Well, let me back up, cause I was just telling you something different. So apparently where the driveway is at Head Start and the church,
Yes,
when you start there, it goes all the way
down, I
back.
believe.
And I know what you're talking about, because about 2 or 3
Yes.
years ago, the neighborhood was up in arms.
yes.
Well, we don't need to go too far in the public record, just
We're
to make
just trying to
sure,
see where, 'cause
just to make sure
Yes.
we're
at the very
clear.
beginning, it was not clear, so the application
Head
was
Start
incorrect.
to where the houses end on the right side of Webb Street.
So
Okay?
then can you also clarify, because I don't know this terminology, and if I should've done that homework, my mom and I would've done that. The difference in multifamily, and then transitional, is that what TR stands for?
No, and actually, this is kind of the heart of my question. Multifamily is still allowed in that R8, which is
Yes.
currently zoned anyway.
Right,
Transitional residential just allows for some extra business uses in there as well, like law offices, things like that. So, the heart of my question is the need to necessarily change it to transitional residential if we're just doing multifamily anyway.
that was the question that I also had. And again, to share the concern and clarification of property value, because we want our property in Selma to increase, and it has not always been that way.
Understood.
you.
Thank you for making that part of the record.
I worry about that too.
Do we have anyone else that would like to speak as part of the public record related to 1355 North Webb Street? With that, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Chip, with the discrepancy in the application, is there anything that needs to be done there?
I believe Mayor's noted for the record, and with that being understood, it's not across from the church, so the council acknowledges that. And I think as long as council has a clear picture as to where exactly this property is, you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. We cannot speak unless we're at the podium. Otherwise, we need to be quiet in the audience, okay? And the public hearing is closed, so now we can't speak as related to this at all. So with that being said, council, we have a rezoning to consider before us. Do I have a motion to approve this rezoning? Ma'am. Thank you.
To your question, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, and I do think we need to discuss. I do question whether or not the change to, transitional residential is even warranted if we intend to do multifamily. It's the exact same zoning pretty much, and that general business piece is so minor, I'm not sure it really changes anything there. So, with that, any other discussion? Well, we have a motion and a second on the table. And with that, we certainly do need to vote on this particular subject. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay? Nay?
Nay.
We don't have a rezoning. I believe if the applicant wants to bring this back, I would assume we probably need to get a lot more information if there's a difference between R8 and TR that we have missed. But I do not understand the purpose for rezoning it if it's about the exact same thing as far as residents are concerned. So, moving right along. We've got a rezoning request on North Pollock Street, which is very different from the previous request. It is a request to rezone a split parcel at 1.8 acres, a portion of the full parcel, and that is made clear on the zoning application. Chip, if you would, take it away.
Be glad to, Mayor, and if you'll look in the package, it gives the parcel number, and it gives the larger tract of almost 100 acres that, Mr. Howard and his family own, and then it's a very small 1.80 acres, and then it actually tells you what the purpose is. They're going from the, current zoning RS20 to general business, and it's for a, proposed Dollar General site. It did go to planning, it did, I believe, have a favorable review as to that limited 1.8 area that was there. And I believe, Laura, can you hear?
I can, I'm sorry, I'm just slow with the unmute button.
No, that's okay, no problem. And going through the application, I'm not aware of, when it was at the planning board, if there was any opposition, anybody spoke, having concerns as to the rezoning.
I don't believe so.
Mayor, it's legislative, it's just like the prior, hearing, we moved to a public hearing and then you would vote.
I do have a question. How do we specify the boundaries of that 1.8 acres related to this rezoning?
Good question. Laura, in terms of the applicant, when they submitted it to planning board, I know it had an area with a site location that was hashed marked.
And we do have an exhibit in the packet as well. Can we reference that exhibit to make sure the zoning is clear?
It would need to.
Absolutely.
To know exactly where the 1.80, yes, sir,
Okay.
as to the rezoned area.
All right, so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
there is a legal description in the application. It's a little,
I
I'm
see
sure
it.
surveyors understand it. It's kind of complicated. I was going to make a suggestion that if council is so inclined to rezone, that as part of their motion or part of the directive to the applicant, that they will supply via surveyor, whatever Johnston County needs for their GIS update.
Perfect.
Mayor,
Absolutely.
page 38 has a meets and bounds, that appears to be, prepared by a surveyor.
In our updated packet, it'll actually be page 40, so I will reference that as our current packet, page 40. That is fantastic. Well, with that being said, knowing that we have that information at hand, council, do I have a motion to open the rezoning public hearing for this parcel of land on Pollock Street?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We have a public hearing open. Who would like to speak as part of the public hearing? Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, I'm Debbie Howard, 221 Westwood Long Drive, Smithville, North Carolina. Our family has ownership interest in it. And, I just wanted to clarify for the record, we're only talking about rezoning 1.8 acres of the 100 acres, not the rest of it, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
That's it. And of course, we're for it, and they've done all their work, and there is a survey that's already been done. So,
Perfect.
okay?
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, thank you. Would anybody else like to speak as part of the public hearing?
My daughter helps me here, so, excuse me. My name is Suzanne Root. I live at 400 Pool Drive. I've been there 47 years. I got a letter saying that there was gonna be a development. The letter said it's gonna be about my property. I was very, very concerned about anything going in behind me, because I've enjoyed 47 years of peace and quiet and just country back there. Something would be put in there, there would be a problem for me as far as noise and runoff from parking lots and lights, noise. The traffic would increase. It would really take away by peace and quiet I've enjoyed all these years. My yard, when it rains, I get quite a bit of water standing. So I can only imagine what it would be like if there was runoff from the parking lot or whatever in the back of me. The letter led me to feel that there was gonna be something built right behind me, and I was quite concerned. It would take away, it would really devalue my property as well.
As part of the public hearing, since I found the document I was looking for earlier.
I appreciate your time.
Show you the actual location of the site that's related to this. I'll show you the actual location of the site, as it's related to this. Do we have, does anybody have it up, resolution? No, we're gonna get that. Let's give her a clear picture, because we want everybody to understand exactly what we're talking about before we move forward. In fact, I'll find it. That would be fantastic, so everybody can read it. I appreciate you. So what we've got is,
Bless you.
That little block, see that little block, just that 1.8 acres. Okay, so that's on, actually on, like, what I would call 301? Yes. Okay, that relieves me. Thank you, I appreciate it.
And she's gonna bring in a full map, because we do want anybody who is interested in this conversation to be able to look exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, all right, thank you so much, I appreciate your time.
Very well. Very well. We don't want any confusion in the town of Selma. We'll wait a moment for Mrs. Howard to get back with a full map to make sure everybody can see. Make sure we're all clear. And as part of the public record, we'll also put this map in the record, if we will, we'll make a copy of it. Absolutely perfect. So I'll give this to you folks, if you want to take a copy. Does anybody else need to see this information while we're here? If we will, make a copy of this. So we can have this public record as far as here. Council, do we have any other questions, any other comments as part of the public hearing?
No, not that doesn't have anything to do with this, the other.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak as part of this public hearing? Going once, going twice. Well, with that, do I have a motion to close the public hearing related to this property on Pollock Street?
So moved.
Second.
We'll give that a second,
Well,
Councilman Oakley.
we got it.
Somebody owes somebody a Coke, that's all I know. All right, we got a public hearing, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor to close this public hearing?
Aye.
Public hearing is closed, and with that, we need to consider the rezoning of this property and making sure we note the boundaries correctly. So, what we'll do is, do I have a motion to approve this rezoning for the properties, the property outlined in this lot description on page 40 of our agenda packet, for this project?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We've got a rezoning. We're good to go there. All right, moving right along. Next up, more business. We've got a public hearing for annexation of West Oak Street. Let's see, Chip, can you,
Yes, sir. And I'm not sure, mine says page 39, but it's really two pages of.
2 pages up, 41.
Page 41.
Mm-hmm.
The owner, Axiom Holdings LLC, the parcel number is given, it's a full 16.0 acres. And a little further down is actually the plat, a survey plat that's listed with that property. The applicant seeking to annex it, into the town. It's currently in the ETJ, it's zoned R20, and the property today, so it would be a total annexation of the entire property. And Mayor, what I would ask you, and this was put in the, I think in here, an error by the applicant, that the EIN statement from, their number, their tax number, if there's any way to remove that out of public record.
Okay.
If they did that mistakenly, we need to remove that out of public record. But, I believe, planning, approved from planning, I think. Laura, if you were there, anybody speaking in opposition if you recall, I was not there.
I believe the question was there any opposition, and there wasn't.
Okay,
It's legislative, Mayor, it'll be a public hearing.
absolutely. And as part of the public hearing, we do need to make sure we remove that EIN number that was
Yes.
mistakenly put into the packet.
Yes, sir.
We'll do so.
And I believe it's page 48 is where the actual survey plat is located.
Yes, sir. That's it. Good, good, good.
West Oak.
And we'll make a note to insert that appropriate number into the record on the application. Okay.
Mayor, we do need, if council passes this, we need an annexation ordinance, which will be recorded.
Okay.
We gotta do notification and all that.
Excellent. And we'll do that at the next meeting?
We can, just like that.
We'll do that at the next meeting. Sounds good. All right. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing related to this property on West Oak Street?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Public hearing is open. Do we have anybody that would like to speak as part of the public hearing? All right, with that, do I have a motion to, wait, no, actually, as part of the public hearing, I apologize. We do need to make sure that we correct this, is it the real estate PIN number in here?
Yes, sir, the EIN, where
Yep.
it's a notification of the tax number.
We need to make sure we correct that and make sure it comports with the parcel that we see on 48, page 48. So if we make sure we get that done as part of the public record. Do we need to take care of anything else as part of the public record?
I believe everything else is in order.
Excellent. Thank you very much. With that, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Annexation, somewhat growing. Do I have a motion to approve the annexation of this parcel at 1500 West Oak Street?
So moved.
Second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and we'll work on the annexation ordinance on our next meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ooh, we get to some pretty stuff now. We've got board recommendation to look at from the Appearance Committee, related to the landscaping around our park signs. So this recommendation, Ethan, if you'd like to come on up and tell us all about it.
Yes, sir. Good evening. So before you is the park landscaping plan for Sumner Street, Brack Wilson, and Blackley Parks, and we are asking for council's approval on this plan. The plan has been approved by the Appearance Committee. If you have any questions as you're looking over the plan, please, feel free to let me know.
Council, do you have any questions related to this plan? Thanks for the detailed drawings.
Yeah, I appreciate. I'm not a great drawer, so I can't take all the credit. This came from the nursery.
Hey, somebody photoshopped the heck out of this thing. That's fantastic.
The only question I had though is, we did this last year, then we passed it, so this is gonna knock that out.
talk about the previous landscaping? Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
this,
that
this
applicant.
this is what we want.
They didn't get around to it, and, fortunately, we got staff that has given us a better visual of what they actually plan on doing.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve this recommendation for, flowers and landscaping around our park sites?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, very cool plan.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Let's see. Moving right along, we've got a presentation to look at about our asset inventory for our sewer. Chief McDaniel, if you'll take it away, give us some information there.
Yes, sir, Council. Thank y'all for your time. Y'all probably heard the word Withers Ravenel a few times around here. With the town being, working really hard to look after grants, go after grants and things. We're completed, or they have completed and about to present to you the first of 3, asset inventory assessments. This one's on sewer. This is gonna go longer than we're all gonna be alive. It's broadcasting further out, so, some good information. We've got Mr. Brandon Inscore and Ms. Shannon Moore, they'll be presenting to you tonight.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. Come on up, gang, come on up.
Right, good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Brandon Inscore. I'm the Funding and Asset Management Practice Area Lead for Withers Ravenel. So our group is in charge of helping create funding strategies and find funding for communities across North Carolina, and then we also do asset management planning. And so I have Shannon here with me tonight. Shannon's going to be talking a bit about financials towards the tail end of the presentation, and I'm going to spend more time talking about what we did with the AIA grant. First slide. So first thing, we'll talk about what an AIA is and an AMP. So there's alphabet soup here with lots of government acronyms, and so we'll go over that. And we'll talk about, what our inventories found, what our condition analysis found, and we'll talk about some of the results of all that and how it impacts you in the future. Next slide. So first of all, the AIA, or Asset Inventory Assessment Grant, is a grant that Selma received from DEQ, the Division of Water Infrastructure in North Carolina, and the grant received was for $150,000. And so the purpose really of these grants from the state standpoint is that they encourage water and wastewater utilities to become more viable and more proactive in the management and financing of their systems to become more sustainable over time. So next slide. The questions that we ask when we do an asset and inventory assessment and create an asset management plan is, what's the current state of my assets? So what do I have? Where is it? And what condition is it in? What is my required sustainable level of service? Which assets are critical to sustain performance? And what are some of the best capital investment strategies and operations and maintenance strategies going forward? And what's my overall best long-term funding strategy? Next slide. So some of the work that was completed actually complements previous work that's been done to study the sewer system in Selma. That included, or has included, GIS work, which is where you go out and do field mapping to understand where your system is. And then not only that, but adding in information about the attributes of the system to help perform study and to help perform analysis. Some of the other things or other aspects of this project and other projects that have come before is to do condition assessment. One of the first ways that you can do condition assessment on a sewer system is to blow smoke through the system. And so if you think about blowing smoke into the system, you actually see the smoke coming out of the ground at different places. That means if the smoke can get out of the ground, water can get into the sewer system because you're blowing smoke into those pipes. And so that's not a good thing because what that means is that you have inflow from the ground, water's getting in, and you're unnecessarily treating, or Johnston County's unnecessarily treating wastewater, water that's not wastewater, water that's getting in that's just rainwater. So that takes away from your capacity, and it also costs money to treat that water. So I'll talk a little bit about that, some of the life cycle modeling, and then I'll turn it over to Shannon in just a little bit. Next slide. This is just simply an inventory of what you have, which is about 41 miles of sewer, 7 miles of force main, 868 manholes, and 19 lift stations, or pump stations. If you go to the next slide, please. What you see here is we've done some other analysis for other projects, and so the blue areas represent areas that we were able to smoke test in the past, and the red lines actually represent areas we were able to smoke test with this project. So the goal was to have all of Selma smoke tested at the end of this project, which we have now done. Next slide. So for the smoke testing results, all of the dots that you see there, except for the yellow ones are where we put the smoke machines, represent areas where we saw smoke coming out of the sewer system. So I will caution you that all of those green dots, a lot of those are clean out caps. So they're clean outs in yards. They get clipped by lawnmowers. Sometimes they're in swales and other areas over time. And so one of the things we were able to easily identify, are areas where we could go working with utility staff to help get some of those points repaired to eliminate water from getting into the system that way. Next slide. What you will see on this map actually represents areas where when we blew smoke into the sewer system, we saw smoke coming out of the stormwater system. Stormwater systems and sewer systems are supposed to be separate. And so these are areas that we've identified where there needs to be additional investigation that goes on, working with utility staff to understand what's going on in these areas. So it's with a combination of all the studies and all the work that we did, we've been able to pinpoint and identify areas. The clean out caps are low-hanging fruit that can be taken care of and addressed relatively easily. These other ones may be more costly to address, and so those are things that we've recommended through the plan to be looked at over time. Additionally, we were able to do some limited CCTV, which is where you run a camera through the system and you're able to see what's going on inside the pipe. As far as the condition assessment goes, next slide. We used a combination of previous CCTV, smoke testing, and GIS analysis, along with the analysis we did with this project, to basically rank the sewer utility system: good, fair, poor, excellent. And so with that, we actually have part of the system, 16% of gravity mains, for example, that we've identified that are in a poor category, that definitely need consideration for the future, as well as some manholes that correspond to those, as well as some lift stations as well. Next slide. The last piece of this, as I kind of bring it home before I turn it over to Shannon, is we did look at consequences of failure when it relates to the sewer system, with the idea that if you have sewer or water systems that are in the proximity of schools or elderly centers, there are higher consequences if those fail because of at-risk populations. So one of the things there is just, realizing that you do have some pipes that you might prioritize down the road as maybe being a little bit more important, because they do serve areas like schools. It could be schools, it could be businesses, could cross under major thoroughfares. There's a number of things, as well as being near the floodplain, because when you have sanitary sewer overflows, that gets into the water, and there's environmental concerns there as well. So we did take, in the next slide, just a project list, and the good thing about Selma is you have an existing CIP, and there's a lot of planning that's gone on through some of the projects. There are opportunities that are listed out here. One thing of note is that we've identified projects over the next all the way up until 2031 where you would be eligible for community development block grants for infrastructure. So you currently have one of those now. You're eligible every so often to go after another one. And so you would be doing that in 2025, 28, and 31. And there are already projects that we've identified that would be good candidates. And so one thing I'll kind of say about this asset management plan is really it is a roadmap for staff to use, for the organization to use going forward, and to follow that path and to kind of help you manage and guide the direction that you go, whether that be with regard to inspections, condition, maintenance, further investigations, and capital projects as well. Next slide. One of the last things that we looked at, we did some what we call life cycle modeling. So what that does is it looks at the remaining service life of your pipe. So let's say you have pipe that's 70 years old, and let's say that pipe lasts 70 years. Then what that means is that pipe is nearing the end of its life cycle. Often we can get more than that. We can sometimes get 80, 90, 100 years out of pipe. But the idea is the pipe doesn't last forever. And there are going to be points in the future based on the age of your system where more pipes are failing kind of at the same time, and financially you're going to have to plan how to address that. So the analogy I use is, if we think about the baby boomer group coming through their life, they impacted different parts of the social systems at different points in time, right? So now they're impacting the retirement systems, the healthcare systems, simply because the age they are, we saw that population spike over time. The same thing happens with pipe. It degrades over time, and there are sections of your system that were put in at the same time, and as they move through time, there are going to be spikes out into the future. So we did some modeling, basically just to say what happens if we don't fund our infrastructure at all. And what you see those lines that trail off on the end of that graph to the end. So that axis on the right is excellent, good, fair, poor, and you see with both of those funding scenarios, you end up at poor in 100 years, where the majority of your system is living in that poor state. And then we did some other analysis that said if you put away $100,000 a year for gravity mains and you add $10,000 to it each year over time, that gets you more to the graphs where you see, which are at a higher level of service that you're providing for the town. And then on the next slide, we did the same thing with lift stations, and it makes a recommendation there for $250,000 with a $25,000 increase every year, putting that money aside so that over time you end up at a higher level service state with your system. So with that, I am going to just briefly mention, next slide, future steps. Using this information as a roadmap to target further assessment, performing more in-depth analysis, continuing to work on planning and budgeting annually, and outlining funding strategies with respect to available money. And so there are multiple ways that we can find funding. We can look at grant opportunities. We can look at low interest loans. But another aspect of that relates to debt service and rates and all that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon, and then we'll entertain any questions after we're both done talking. Shannon?
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. As Brandon mentioned, I'm Shannon Moore. I'm the Director of Financial Services here at Withers Ravenel. And so the biggest question I know on your mind is how do you pay for all of these infrastructure projects that have been identified in the asset management plan? And so the first thing that we want to take a look at is your current financial situation, where you're at, and what's indicated by your most recent financial audits. And then we want to look at your 10-year capital improvement needs. We did some of that with staff, and then we also looked at prioritizing the needs that came out of the asset management plan from the AIA study. And then we're going to develop some options to fund those infrastructure needs from a financial standpoint. And again, this project is focused only on the sewer side, since this was the portion of the sewer asset and inventory assessment grant. And then the biggest thing we want to do is we want to attempt to balance any rate increases you need from your ratepayers so that they're level annually and you're avoiding any kind of rate shock in a single year. Next slide. So the first thing that we looked at was we looked at 5 of your last audit years. This chart illustrates in the green line your total revenues on an annual basis, and the red bars indicate your expenses. So you'll note here in both 2018 and 2022, your revenues did exceed your expense needs in the sewer fund, but those 3 middle years of 2019, 20, and 21, your revenue was not sufficient to cover your expenses. Next slide. So the next thing we looked at on your past financials in your 5-year audits was your unrestricted net position. That's essentially your savings account for needed infrastructure projects if something were to break. You'll kind of see a similar trend here from the previous slide, where those 3 years at the very bottom are those years where your fund balance dipped from the losses in that fund in 2019, 20, and 21. Of note, in 2020, that was only about a 2% fund balance in your sewer. So you've taken great strides in the last couple of years to improve that. The $988,000, just under $1 million in 2022, represents about 34% fund balance for your sewer fund. So much better shape in the last couple of years. Next slide. And then the next thing we looked at was the projects that were identified through the asset management plan, and also in conversations with staff on any existing projects that need to be funded. And what we came up with between those two analysis was 10 year of projects totaling just under 17 million. And we did take the current year cost and we inflated those 6% annually for annual inflation. So that takes into consideration the actual cost 10 years from now in each of those years. And of those projects, you have 13 sewer rehab projects that were identified, totaling around 12.3 million. As Brandon mentioned earlier, 3 of those we have made the assumption $3 million every 3 years that would be funded through CDBG infrastructure. So hopefully that would be at no cost to the city through those grant programs. And then we had 7 lift station rehabilitation and replacements that totaled around $4 million over that 10-year period. And then we added in some rolling stock and other projects in conversations with staff, some equipment, recurring replacements that you need for that, which was just under $500,000. So that brings your total to just under the 17. The next piece that we want to look at is in determining how to fund these projects is what is your current debt capacity, and what opportunity do you have within that 10-year period to look at any type of debt bundling and debt packages to pay for some of those projects. With debt packages, obviously you have a longer period of time to pay for some of those projects, and so you can spread that cost instead of once a year making all of that payment. You can spread it over the life of the loan, which oftentimes can be 15 or 20 years. So in looking at your existing debt service in the sewer fund, you have one installment loan that matures this fiscal year. That's with KS Bank, and that was approximately $41,000 a year that'll roll off of your expense side. In 2027, you have a water fund repayment loan that's currently $75,000. By the year 2027, that payment will be $50,000. So between those two, you're looking at anywhere from $120,000 to about $150,000 that will be rolling off of your books in debt services. And so at the end of that year 4 through year 10, you would currently have about $74,000, $75,000 in debt, indicating that you do have some small capacity to take on future debt packages. And then in terms of funding the 10-year asset management plan, again, $9 million of that is assumed to be grant funded, every 3 years incrementally at $3 million each. We are proposing a debt package to fund the latter parts of the 10-year CIP. So we're bundling a couple of years of projects that would total about 3.5. That debt would come on based on our assumptions around fiscal year 2032. And then the remaining projects you would need to fund as kind of pay-go and through rate and revenue increases within your sewer fund. And the assumption that we have made here is the first 3 years of that 10-year CIP, you would look at a 6% sewer increase in years 2028 through 2034. So those remaining 7 years, you would be looking at a 5% increase. And one thing to note here is we are looking at total revenues. So that's not all just on the backs of ratepayers and funded through rates. So there's other options that you can look at there to supplement those revenue. And one other thing I'll mention here is one of the things that the UNC School of Government and the Environmental Finance Center indicates is when you do look at increasing rates, you want to take into consideration the price elasticity of demand, which means that as your prices increase, sometimes consumer behavior will decrease with consumption. And so their analysis is for about every 10% rate increase you look at, you would want to look at a 1 to 3% reduced consumption. So in order to get your 6 or 5%, you'd really be looking at a rate increase if you did it all on the rate side, around 7.5%, 6%, just to take into consideration that reduced consumption from users. And then with all of these assumptions, we have looked at a 10-year future forecast for your days cash on hand, which again indicates kind of your savings account for your sewer fund. You can kind of see a little bit of a ski slope here. You've started to improve again in the last couple of years. And at the end of the 10-year period, you would be around 364 days, which is about a year of cash on hand. So if no revenue came into the fund, you would be able to entirely fund your expenses with a full year of cash.
Does that 2027 dip correlate to being aggressive with some of the improvements that need to be up front?
Yeah, so there were 2 years within that 10-year time span that there was a negative net income. It was very small, around $100,000 a year, and again, that's just to kind of flatline it. What you don't want to have is 3 consecutive years of losses. That's one of the indicators that the LGC will look at. So this is pretty comfortable in that 25 and 27. You have a small dip for a negative net income year. And then the rest of all of those years are positive on the expense side towards revenue.
And that's provided we take the path that's been presented.
Correct, yes. And then the last slide, that green bar at the very top shows your total revenues for the fund. Again, if you were to assume those 6 and 5% rate increases. So you'll see those last 3 years where we've made that assumption for debt, which is that really bright blue bar in 32, 33, and 34. You do see that there's a little bit of cushion there. So there is some opportunity that if your finances were to change or you have significant growth and that you can retain some of your increased revenues through growth versus rate increases, that you have a little bit of capacity there to kind of play around with debt versus pay-go versus some other financing. So you definitely have some cushion there. And then I think that is the end of my presentation. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and present you this information. And at this time, Brandon and I'll entertain any questions.
Council, do you have any questions?
Brandon, I do. On page 59, we talked about the cleanout traps.
Yes.
We've been dealing with that for 10 years now. What's your suggestion you're gonna use? Because right now, what we got's not working. Lawnmowers are tearing them up. So what's your suggestion of putting there?
So what you're dealing with is a fairly common problem that I don't know that there's a great solution for out there. You're not the only community, definitely not the only community dealing with it, for sure. I don't have any tonight, although I can talk to folks back in the organization to see if there's anything innovative that we're seeing or that they're seeing in their space. So that's something I can definitely look into for you.
So, and I understand that all of the water we're getting in the lines is not coming just from the cleanout traps. cause it's coming from all the bad pipe on the ground.
Yes,
And
sir.
the water seeking in the ground is getting in the pipe. I understand that. Could we use concrete
Concrete pipe,
for the clean out?
oh, for the cleanouts? I don't, that's not my area of expertise.
All right.
So
Good
I,
thing, good thing.
Sounds pricey too. Yeah. But of course, you
Try
know,
it on.
I think more immediately, of course, just basic things like staff going around, checking the cleanouts, going ahead and making repairs when we notice there are problems instead of leaving them to be left open is a common sense step we can take to take care of that.
Yeah, say they start, like say we start putting a fee on those that keep tearing the traps up.
Yeah.
You know, it's some responsibility is on us.
You may not have caught that in this presentation, but all those green dots, not problems today.
Yeah.
They went with him and fixed.
They fixed them
Yes,
already.
yes,
yeah.
I called that.
Yeah.
I called that.
And I'll just say, not necessarily a question, but we've been, I know since I've been on council, trying to get a real capital improvement plan related to our individual operations, and this is probably the first time I've seen one that is actually viable, feasible, and well explained.
Yes.
So we very much
Agree.
appreciate it. Anything else?
And the rate hikes. What year
Sorry?
the rate hikes to 5% and 6%?
Yes, so the first 3 years of the CIP would be at the 6%, and then the remaining years would be at the 5%. And of course, some of that can come from, again, it doesn't have to come all from the ratepayer side. You know, if you've got natural growth within your community, we did make an assumption of a 1.5% community growth per year annually, because you are in a growing area. So if you exceed that growth rate, obviously there's a lot of efficiencies that you get with more users on your system if there's capacity to take on those new users. So it doesn't all have to come from purely water and sewer rate increases.
And we're gonna see a lot of that, particularly with commercial and industrial users. So we're gonna look at our actual reality and consider whether or not those rate hikes are actually necessary, because that reality for us is going to change very quickly over the next year and a half. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Great presentation. All right, moving right along. Customer service policy, we wanna touch on that real quick, Ms. Blanton?
Good evening. So before you, you have the utility customer service policy. We've got a few updates to meter obstructions, some offense fees for those obstructions, and an addition of a customer behavior policy.
Excellent. So, just to make sure we're clear, within the policy, we are putting in fines and penalties for having an obstructed meter, water or electric, so that the meter cannot be read electronically and cannot be accessed by staff. So, first offense $30, second offense $60, third offense beyond $100. And then there's also a piece in here about, quite frankly, customers who come in and treat our customer service representatives without the utmost respect.
Correct.
We will not tolerate that in the town of Selma, and we will make sure it is taken care of in a timely fashion.
That's correct.
Any questions there?
It's good.
We have a customer service policy updated in front of you to consider. Do I have a motion to approve this updated customer service policy?
So moved.
Second.
Give that second to Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving right along. Mayor's Monarch Pledge. Somebody wanna tell me what we got going on there? Well, I'll update everybody. That's what it is. So, with all of these landscaping plans that we're talking about, it is part of the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, and that is a pledge to plant plants that are going to help propagate particularly monarch butterflies. So with the landscaping plans of the parks, the landscaping plans that we're discussing with the railroad right-of-way, we're being intentional about planting plants that will help the monarch butterfly population go. So we expect not only to have pretty plants, but pretty butterflies floating through the town of Selma. So, as we go forward, everybody needs to bear in mind when we're talking about appearance, when we're talking about landscaping, public works, the mayor's monarch pledge needs to be kept in mind to make sure that we are holding up our end of the bargain. All right? Next up, JCC athletic contract. Mr. Arnold did ask a question about that. If you'll come on up, Ethan, and give us an overview of the updates we have made to the contract, and then we'll get into the discussion answering directly Mr. Arnold's question from open forum.
So before you is the proposed Johnston Community College and Town of Selma athletics contract that we are asking for the council's approval on. The town attorney, Mr. Hewitt, has reviewed and approved the contract. If you have any questions as you're reviewing the contract, any questions can be answered by myself or Mr. Hewitt.
All right, and if you would, address the opt-out clause.
Paragraph 4.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, if I get this wrong, just let me know.
No.
So essentially, the purpose of the opt-out is, to recoup any funds that, by opting out would be lost. So essentially, say you rent at 10 times at $400, it's $4,000. So it would be assessed using a non-JCC rental rate. So if it's 500, you're looking at $1,000 difference. So if you opt out for 2025, 2026, it would be the loss of rental rates for the previous years, so $3,000. And that's just by way of example.
Yeah, so it does say in the contract, prior, it says prior, JCC rentals, future JCC rentals would be null and void. So that is clearly for what you've already rented, not anything going forward. So again, like you said, if you rented through 2025 and the rate was $10 for you, but $15 for everybody else, you would pay the extra $5 for opting out early. Okay? Any other questions? All right. Do I have a motion to approve this contract between Johnston Community College and the town of Selma for rental at the Richard B. Harrison Gymnasium?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Very cool. So if there's any more questions, please reach out at any point in time. We can go through it line by line with anybody who's concerned, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Ooh, we've got some applications to consider. First, we've got a tourism committee, tourism commission application from, Ms. Susan Coombs. Susan Coombs is a resident who lives here in downtown Selma. Very interested in joining our tourism commission. I'll give you a moment to browse over it, and with that, do I have a motion to approve Ms. Susan Coombs?
There is an opening, right?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, the opening has been left because of the change in the bylaws with Donna Bailey Taylor not being required to be on the board.
Okay.
Do I have a motion to approve Ms. Coombs' application for the Tourism Commission?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Coombs, for volunteering to do the work in the town of Selma. We also have another tourism piece to discuss. The Johnston County Tourism Authority Board has some openings, and Mr. James Lassiter of the town of Selma has applied to join that board. So I would ask for a motion to recommend to the Johnston County Commissioners that Mr. Lassiter be appointed to the Johnston County Tourism Authority Board. Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Ho, ho. We'll give a first to Overby, and we'll give a second to Councilwoman Whitley. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
We will make that recommendation. Mr. Larson Batten, if you would, make sure that we send an email to the clerk, Ms. Dana Cuddy of Johnston County Commissioners, to make that recommendation from the town of Selma be known. And we do actually have an additional Selma Tourism Committee application to consider. So, there's a two-parter to this one. What'll happen is if Mr. Lassiter is approved for the Johnston County Tourism Authority Board, we would not allow him to actually serve on our Selma Tourism Commission. That would kind of be double dipping in the pot. You get a vote from us and then go back and get to look at it again at the county level. So we would certainly take him off of our board if he was approved for that board. And we certainly would appreciate that service. So I'm going to first make a motion that pending approval to the Johnston County Tourism Authority Board, we would remove Mr. Lassiter from the Selma Tourism Commission. And then second, we do have a Tourism Commission application for Ms. Rosa Edwards. So my second motion related to this application, a longtime resident of Selma applying for this board, would be to approve Ms. Edwards' application pending the vacancy of Mr. Lassiter's seat on the Town of Selma Tourism Commission. So, do take a moment, make sure we look over that thing before I ask to make those motions official. Do I have a motion that pending Mr. Lassiter's appointment to the Johnston County Tourism Authority Board, that he would be removed from the Selma Tourism Commission?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And do I have a motion that pending Mr. Lassiter's appointment to the Johnston County Tourism Authority Board and the vacancy of his seat, that Ms. Rosa Edwards would be appointed to the Selma Tourism Committee?
So moved.
Second.
Give that second to Councilwoman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Good to go. So all of that is pending action from Johnston County Commissioners. And moving along further, let's talk about our eligible town council applicants. We need to.
Get some sheet and you just do it.
That was G. Yeah, you're on it though. I didn't say it, but you're on it. Thank you. Eligible town council applicants, did we parse through the applications and did we find out who was eligible? Do we have that list of eligible names? Absolutely.
Or would it be easier if I tell you who's not eligible?
Go ahead and tell us who's eligible. Give us the list of eligible names.
Troy LaPlante, Chandretta Watson, Rich Nixon, Ruth Ray, Susan Watson, and Don Barker.
And Don Barker. So there was one applicant that was not
She is, Dr. Brittany McCoy, the ETJ, so.
ETJ member. Okay, so of course ETJ members cannot be on council. So of the original list, one applicant is not viable, the rest are. Do we need that list again, council? Everybody's got it? And I do believe we all have copies of the applications. Excuse me. With that being said, we need a process now to appoint somebody to fill that vacancy created by former Councilmember McKay. It is my preference, A, that with a 4-member board, I leave myself out of the decision so that we have 3 members deciding and we don't have anything to worry about a tie. And quite frankly, you all are wiser than I am, so I probably shouldn't be involved anyway. With that being said, and you guys tell me how you feel about this process, I believe I would give Mayor Pro Tem the first option to make a motion on who he would like to appoint to the board. If he gets a second, we'll take the second, and then we'll take a vote for that. If he does not get a second, it would fail for a lack of a second. We would move to giving Councilman Overby the option. If he gets a second, we take a vote. If it fails at any point, we would move to give Councilwoman Whitley the option, and then we do round robin as we go around. Is everybody okay with that process? So that we can very openly in the public make sure that this decision is being made in real time. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Well, let's take up that process at the November meeting. You do have the list of eligible applicants. Please look at the eligible applicants. Eligible applicants, I hate to do this to you, council, but I do suggest you reach out to our council members. And if you have anything you want them to know, if you wanna have discussions with them, I would suggest you talk to them individually and make your, thoughts about Selma be known, quite frankly. They are going to be left to make the decision. Everybody okay with that process?
Good.
Chip, do you have any problems with that process?
Yes, sir.
Love it. All right. And we will be prepared to go through that process at our November regular council meeting. We'll make that appointment at the end of the meeting with anticipation of, what do you call it?
Sworn in.
Swearing in December meeting with the rest of swearing-ins that will happen, with an election. All right? Let's take a look at this municipal funding agreement with Johnston County. Chip, can you walk us through that real quick?
Mayor can, and council should have a copy of it in your package. This is coming on the heels of the adoption of the bulk wastewater agreement, which we did in October. And again, it's an incentive that the county, commissioners came up with, as a way to allow the towns to acquire additional capacity. And it was from grant funds the county was able to put together. And a portion of it is, there's some towns that didn't have, a sewer system, so the towns that do have it got the benefit of the consideration of this funding agreement. The numbers that are before you, that the specific numbers came from the county, engineer, Chandra. She did verify those numbers. Really, for the record, the good news is the initial grant that was proposed, there was an issue as to how it was filed and for what it was filed for, and it had a 3 on it. If you will recall, the prior grant was about 200 short of what other towns qualified for. So with the recent adoption by council in October of the agreement, it's now back to 5 as the eligible funds. So the way it works literally, Mayor, is, and you can read the timing, it's not a long, lengthy process, but, you apply, you get the funds, and you make the request to the county, and then it's paid to the county, and then additional capacity is allotted to the town. And other than that, I mean, in terms of risk analysis and breaching the contract, now there's a couple of paragraphs that, if you breach it, there's really nothing to breach. It's a very quick in and out turnaround. And once it's completed, where the check's requisitioned, to the town, capacity is issued, then it's requisitioned to the county. It's an in and out process, so it would be very limited as to any risk analysis for the town.
Council, questions?
What's the use of doing it? Wait,
Good
tell me why we should do that.
Securing is a great question, because capacity is still an issue, and right now, and the Board of Commissioners, they're working to try to get the plan, everything upgraded. I mean, we're talking 2025. This is locking in additional capacity to the town of Selma based on these numbers. So it's an additional allocation. So I think the answer is, we can say we've got the capacity under the bulk wastewater agreement act, this additional capacity we can look to that we've already purchased.
And from the county side, this is kind of just a pass-through.
It is, that's exactly right, Mayor, and that's the way they're doing it. I mean, totally legit, it's funds that they receive, they're able to pass on, but it's gotta be a pass-through scenario. And again, if, let's assume you say, oh, this, there's not gonna do it, well then, this lump of money will go to another town that will.
And that capacity will go to whoever.
Yes, sir.
And quite frankly, it makes no sense for us to quibble over it, in my estimation, but it is an interesting dance there.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
Like sugar coat with me.
We don't have the sugar yet. We're gonna put it in the candy bacon, and, this is gonna help us bake it.
I
Which
do,
will have sugar in it.
I do like the county at least, having the forethought to offer the extra capacity on top of what is allotted, so.
With that, I agree, Mayor, and secondly, the increase from where we were under, the prior agreement with a different number, I thought that was very applicable to the county to help us with that.
Well, council, do I have a motion to approve making this agreement with the County of Johnston for this municipal funding?
So move.
Second.
Oh, no,
Oh.
we got a second, but we'll go into discussion. Chip, what's up?
No, that is, and I wanted to make sure we've got the prior one, but you do have the current agreement.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, thank
It's
you.
kinda like we don't have a choice.
Well, I mean,
I know it's a
I know,
choice.
I know.
with this, we do have the choice, but I don't see any downside to it, to be honest with you. It's just extra capacity, and the county did give us, give some thought on how to process this, so I don't mind it at all. We've got a motion and a second on the table. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
No, go ahead. I was on aye.
That's unanimous. We got an agreement. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Everything else I have there is included.
Sounds good. And so, we'll take into council members' report and recommendations, of course, as always. Not unless you feel otherwise, Mayor Pro Tem.
Again, I would like to say, as always, we appreciate those that come out to be with us in person. We, appreciate those that listen to us online. And, but I just wanna make one statement because of, we just had our Railroad Day this past weekend. And to the town of Selma and the employees and the staff, I mean, it was one of the best yet. And we put a lot of pressure on you guys from time to time. I want to let you know we appreciate it. And we set our standards high, and that's not by accident. I respect things be that way. But if it falls short, it's still good. You know what I'm saying? But if you want to sit in this wild and mediocrity, that's what you're gonna get. So we all want things to be at a top-notch level because that's what we expect. And that's what the image of Selma should be. And I appreciate what you guys do, the time you put in, the effort you put in, and being the thing that you have to sometimes get those ill words or maybe something like that. But still, I appreciate what everybody do.
Councilman.
Same thing here. Appreciate everything you're doing. So, thank you.
And that's exactly what I wanted to say. I appreciate everything y'all do for us, especially during these festivals and all of the things we have going on in town. Y'all know I appreciate y'all so much, and thank you.
I know you notice, all of us got a little pink up here. We did dress up for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So, we want everybody to remember, how much breast cancer has affected our population, how many of us have been affected by that, either someone close to us or even personally affected by breast cancer. The importance of regular checkups, mammograms, making sure that you're aware of changes in your own bodies. It is a very, very dangerous, very, very deadly affliction that has taken way too many from us way too soon. So we just want to make sure we recognize breast cancer awareness, and the fight continues to save our population from it. With that, the Selma Cycle Paths. Has anybody ever heard of these folks? Yeah. The Selma Cycle Paths came through, of course, for another Railroad Days and did a ride early morning Saturday as part of Railroad Days. They raise funds by riding all around North Carolina and beyond for multiple sclerosis treatment. Over their entire history as a group, they have raised $2 million plus. Their goal this year with these rides is $75,000. I believe they're right around a little over $60,000 right now. I encourage you, look up information about the Selma Cycle Paths, coolest name ever. And I encourage you to donate to their cause. See when they're riding, see when you can make donations. It's a very, very powerful effort to combat the affliction that has affected many of multiple sclerosis. I do have, some unfortunate news that we need to discuss as we have gone into really exploring our utility billing, particularly with the updates of our, utility systems. We have come across quite a bit still that was not done correctly in the past. It's honestly costing staff quite a bit of time to figure out where we failed. So with that being said, we are finding that the town of Selma's owed a lot of money from a lot of different folks that, due to lack of due diligence from former staff, we aren't collecting on the taxpayers' dime. So, we do have very, specific policies laid out in our policy. For instance, if a utility customer owes us money at any point, they're not supposed to be able to start new utilities anywhere in the town of Selma. And we have found that there are multiple individuals that are currently in that state. I actually had a discussion with an individual today that, had asked if council would be interested in waiving those, quite frankly, accrued utilities. My guess is no. Is there any difference there? No. If you owe the town of Selma money, you need to pay up. So with that being said, staff, as we come across these customers where we have been not diligent in making sure the monies that were owed were collected, please send them letters explaining the situation, explaining what they owe, and make sure you explain to them that council has made it clear that there is no forgiveness for using utilities and not paying. Plain and simple. And if anybody has any questions about that, feel free to have them call me immediately. We are stewards of the taxpayer's dollar. And the taxpayer has put out dollars for these utilities, and they expect to recover the revenue for the use of those utilities. Plain and simple. So, there's a list of things that I'm going to go through just as bullet points to make sure everybody's clear. A person cannot open a new utility account without paying all outstanding accounts due to the town of Selma. Landlord cannot open a new tenant account if they've not paid all outstanding closed accounts to the town of Selma. So even if you've closed an account, if it still has any type of balance on it, there's no new account related to your property. Any customer whose services have been transferred or involuntarily terminated will be required to update their deposit to the existing deposit minimum required by reconnecting services. So we have raised the deposit, particularly for red credit ratings. If you close your account and you paid a $600 deposit and you open it and you now have to pay $1,000 deposit, you're gonna pay $400 to get utilities. It's called policy. Plain and simple. Access to metering devices is essential to be accurately read and checked. Customers will be notified, and as you just saw with our change in policy, we're gonna be fining you if we can't read your stuff. This is not only aggravating to our staff, but it costs the taxpayer dime because it costs taxpayer money for our staff to run around because you don't know how to not park your car on top of a water meter. Return checks. If you get a return check, cash only for a year. Second time it happens, cash only for 2 years. Third time it happens, we are no longer taking a check from you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is on the public record for you now, so that if you have any questions, give me a call. Extensions on accounts are only granted after 6 months of billing history with the town of Selma. So if you've only been here 5 months paying utilities, don't ask for an extension. You need to pay up. Only one extension is allowed in a 12-month period. Only the customer's name who appears on the account can sign the extension form, and they must do that at the office in person, sitting in front of one of our staff members. Customers must pay half the bill at the time of extension form being signed. So there is a policy in place that says this is how you get an extension. The remaining balance must be paid within 5 days. If not paid, the services will be disconnected, and extensions are not granted on the day of cutoff. All of these things are aggravating for our staff. They cost us a lot of time, and that in turn costs taxpayer money. Whoever's whispering in the back, I can hear you, let's cut it out. And this is a problem that we have been suffering through apparently for a long time. And we can't figure out why we have to have discussions about capital improvement plans to make sure we can pay our utilities properly as a town. So this is on the record, that this is what we do in the town of Selma, and if anybody has any questions, give me a call, we'll talk about it. Thank you. Staff, to echo what these guys said, Railroad Days, that's the best one I've ever seen. I've been here 7 years, and I thought Railroad Days was a joke the first Railroad Days I saw. I'm very blunt, I'm very forward. You guys knocked it out of the park. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My kids are still talking about Railroad Days. They will not stop talking about Railroad Days. Keep it up. Now, of course, you know the danger of being awesome. It's hard to stay awesome. But y'all keep staying awesome. Y'all are rocking it out. Let me talk about the state budget just passed. And particularly Senator Salre, Representative Strickland have really gone to bat for the town of Selma. So I just want to give a quick outline of the appropriations that the town of Selma is receiving as part of our state budget. So facility improvements and repairs, we have been appropriated $3,102,307. That's gonna go a little ways to do some stuff around the town of Selma. These buildings are getting old, they're getting raggedy, it's time to clean up. Economic development, we were very interested in getting a little rail spur action, maybe some development over in the Eastfield side. Whatever matriculates from economic development, we have $800,000 for that effort. We just had a fantastic conversation about our water and sewer infrastructure and the needs to improve. And, well, first, that economic development effort, it's my understanding that Senator Salre carried that on his back for the town of Selma. And then, it cannot be understated, Representative Larry Strickland has really been involved, engaged, and has really gone out of his way for us. I've talked to him probably way too many times, he's probably tired of hearing from me. But for that water and sewer efforts, $12,800,000 in appropriations from the state of North Carolina. We got behind. We did. We're playing catch up. But we, as a town, are busting our tails to do that. And I want to thank you all for the support. I want to thank you all for the efforts. And I want to say, hey, let's keep being awesome in the town of Selma. Otherwise, again, Railroad Day is fantastic. Triple S had a little homecoming parade as well. That was very cool. I hope they keep doing that every year. That's going to get big. But things are happening in Johnston County, and if we all do it together, we all do it right, this place is going to be absolutely amazing. With that, got to entertain a motion to go into closed session. I think Chip has talked to us about some stuff. Do we have the statute under which?
We do, Mayor, 143.318.11, subsection 3, to discuss with the attorney pending litigation matters, and then when matters up. No, that's it. It's just pending matters of litigation.
Fantastic. Do I have a motion to go into closed session under those statutes?
So moved. Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
We're in closed session. Folks, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.